What's going on, guys? Welcome to our Rant Video on this channel. Shout out to everyone subscribing to the channel, liking the videos. I appreciate that. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the NBA playoffs, and that's including the Warriors, because when I talk about the Warriors, I am talking about the best team in basketball, and you cannot argue with that. And I have to also say, there's a lot of people in the sports media and a lot of fans that are trashing the Warriors, and throughout the whole season, they were doing that. But during the playoffs, it gets really interesting. Do you think that these guys out there that are competing with the Warriors appreciate the fact that they're winning so many games? They enjoy the game of basketball. And when you go against a team like that, you are going to have issues winning that game. Probably more often than not, you're not going to win. Now look at this series. The Warriors versus the Blazers. Out of all the teams in the first round, I'm saying that the Blazers, they should not be predicting anything. They should actually be saying, you know what? We're going against a very tough team. Just say that. This idea that you guys are being overly confident is not going to substitute for what you guys are not going to be able to do in this series. No offense to the Blazers. I realize you have some guys on your team that can ball, but you're not winning this series in 6 games, and you're not winning this series. So shout out to Dub Nation again. We got this. All right. The Clippers versus the Jazz. The Clippers are an interesting team for a variety of reasons, but it has a lot to do with the way their team is structured. I don't think that the Clippers are an NBA Finals team. The reason why is because they don't have the leadership, and I'm not just talking about the coaching, I'm talking about the actual team leadership that would allow them to win an NBA championship with this team. I think they're an interesting team. They can compete, but there's no way that they're at the same level as the Warriors. And yes, people are going to say, hey, you're just a Warriors fan. That's right, I am a Warriors fan. But I'm talking about reality about the Clippers. The Clippers can't really compete with the Warriors on that level. So, that's why I think about the Clippers versus the Jazz. Now we go to the Houston Rockets versus OKC. Where this is interesting is that you have two teams that have potential MVPs. And that's Russell Westbrook and, of course, James Harden. But I've been saying that Russell Westbrook should be the MVP. And this is before he got the record for triple doubles. I was saying that because, you know what? Even though Kevin Durant went to the Warriors and OKC could have made a lot of excuses, they're in the NBA playoffs. They have Russell Westbrook. He at least tries. He's a team player. A lot of people say that he's stat padding. You know what? He's not just getting the acknowledgement for just getting buckets. He's actually sharing the ball with his teammates. You know, those assists matter. Also, the rebounds. So, when I look at Russell Westbrook compared to James Harden, you know, James Harden can be a very elusive baller. If you ever see his jump shot, the way he dribbles, so he's going to go through the paint, he could be a real challenge for other guys to go against him. But, you know, the same conversation needs to happen with these two guys in an NBA playoff series where people are trying to say, who's the better athlete in a series where the two teams go against each other? That's going to be interesting in itself. But that does not necessarily mean that one guy who has the better series is going to be the MVP, because the MVP is about the regular season. So just because James Harden might have a great series, or even Russell Westbrook, you can't just say, okay, that means that they're the MVP. Because I think Russell Westbrook already proved that he is the MVP of the regular season. Now, as far as the playoffs, I think the Rockets have a good team, but that's because of James Harden and James Harden's leadership for that team. And also, you guys have other guys that can ball. Now, as far as OKC has a playoff team. But again, there was so much change for them when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. For them to be even in the playoffs, I think it's going to be a real challenge for them to go against the Rockets. And I think the Rockets have the advantage in this series. But that does not mean that OKC could not win the series. There's always a possibility. Like I've been saying about all these teams, there are no guarantees. So if you're watching these teams, you root for one team or the other. In sports, you can't guarantee anything. But I think that the Rockets have an advantage in this series. Now we talk about the Spurs and the Grizzlies. If you ever watch the Grizzlies during the regular season, the Grizzlies are an interesting team also. They can ball. But the Spurs and their coaching and their team structure. And, you know, the Spurs are an interesting team, although a lot of people say they're boring, which I have to agree. More often than not, the Spurs are a very boring team. But the Spurs win, and they know how to win. And I do think they have an advantage in this series. Although the Grizzlies, they have a lot to prove. And to go against a team like the Spurs, the Grizzlies have an opportunity to win also. So I'm not guaranteeing anything again, but I would say that the Spurs have an advantage in this series, just by the leadership and also the structure of the team again. And also when you have someone like Kawhi, he can ball. So the Spurs are no joke. Now we're talking about the Eastern Conference. The Celtics versus the Bulls. And by the way, the Bulls had a very interesting season just by the way they got into the playoffs. And then you have the Celtics. And if you ever seen Isaiah Thomas ball, this guy is about basketball. And he has a perimeter shot. He could drive the net. Again, he's another elusive baller in the NBA. But you have the Bulls, who are also an interesting team. They've been in the playoffs recently. When you compare the two teams, I would say that the Celtics have an advantage in this series. Would I like to see the Bulls win against the Celtics? Yes, I would like to see the Bulls win against the Celtics because I've been rooting for the Bulls since Jordan. But I'm also acknowledging the reality of the Bulls. And the Bulls are not necessarily built right now to win a championship. And I'm not saying the Celtics are either, because the Celtics really have questions about them too. If you notice the way they played basketball during the regular season, even when they went against the Cleveland Cavaliers, they have some issues. Even if they go against a team like the Raptors. As much as I do not like the Raptors, and I'll explain that when I talk about the next series. But as far as the Celtics, they have a team that could win this series. Again, although I would like the Bulls to win the series, I acknowledge the fact that the Celtics can ball. But I am rooting for the Bulls. Now let's talk about the Washington Wizards versus the Atlanta Hawks. I'm saying that the Atlanta Hawks have the advantage in this series because the Hawks are balling. Now, they even won against the Cavaliers, and you have to acknowledge that. Now, the Wizards are the Wizards. I'm not going to say anything about them because I don't really watch them. But I'm going to say that the Hawks have an advantage over their team. I think the Hawks are going to win this series. That should be an interesting series also. Now, as far as the Raptors versus the Milwaukee Bucks, I would like to see the Bucks win against the Raptors, but honestly, I think the Raptors are going to win. But with the Bucks going against the Raptors, your fan base and also your team. I am rooting against the Leafs because they took that playoff spot from my team. And I'm also rooting against the Raptors because I just don't like you guys. Now, as far as the Raptors go, though, the Raptors are another interesting team. They got guys that can ball. They're not on the level of the Cavaliers, I don't think. Although this season, out of all the seasons with the Cleveland Cavaliers, if they did go against a team like the Raptors, no question about it, there's an opportunity for the Raptors to win. And that's because of all the issues that the Cavaliers are having. And they are having issues. That team is not built and ready for an NBA championship, at least in my opinion. Unless they changed everything that's been going on, because their regular season was not as impressive as a team like the Warriors. And we are talking about winning an NBA championship in the finals, of course. And you have to go against the best team in the Western Conference, obviously. But again, with the Raptors, they have an opportunity to win the series. A lot of people think probably they're going to win the series. They have a good team. But I would not say they have a great team. And a great team would win an NBA championship. And the reason I say that is because if they go against the Cavaliers, they could make the series interesting. But I don't think interesting enough to win the series itself against the Cavaliers, unless the Cavaliers continue to play mediocre basketball, which they have been doing for a while now. Now, if you even go back to last year in the finals, before I talk about the Cavaliers series, you look at the Cavaliers. Again, in the NBA Finals, Draymond Green gets suspended. Also, you had injuries on the Warriors at the time with Bogut. You had Iguodala, I think, had like a back injury or whatever. You had guys in the team that were playing a lot of basketball. And when the series changed after Draymond Green was suspended, you saw that the Cavaliers were able to win some games. But I think the series was changed so much that I don't think you ever saw a Cavaliers team that was so successful that you would say that they could win against any team in the NBA at any time. I just don't think that because of the way the Warriors were playing basketball last season by winning that regular season record and the way that series was. I don't really think the Cavaliers were convincing enough to say, you know what, in this NBA playoffs, the Cavaliers are necessarily the team that everyone has to win against. Meaning, even to the finals where you say that the Cavaliers are best in the whole NBA, I don't agree with that. But in this series with the Cavaliers versus Indiana, of course, I think the Cavaliers have an advantage. They're the ones who won the championship last season. I think they have the better team, and I think the Cavaliers are going to win this series. Although, I would like these series with the Cavaliers to be a lot more interesting, where these teams make the Cavaliers compete, do not make it easy for them. If it's the Raptors versus the Cavaliers in the next round, where those teams go against each other, I think the Raptors could make it interesting for the Cavaliers. I don't think Indiana is going to make it that interesting, but, anything's possible again. And if they do, I'll be laughing because if you look at the Cavaliers, there's a lot of confidence with them from LeBron James. But if you notice recently, when Dennis Rodman was talking about LeBron James, Dennis Rodman was saying that Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James, and that's because of his leadership, and his ability as an athlete. When LeBron James talks about his team, he's been criticizing his teammates more than he would say anything about himself as a leader for that team. Again, we're talking about the playoffs. And if you notice recently about the Cavaliers, the one thing they do not have is really great team leadership when they don't win games. A lot of these guys on the Cavaliers, they might go to the media, although a lot more people would listen to LeBron James when he complains about the team. And when you compare that to what's going on in the Western Conference with the Warriors, they have not been doing that. In fact, since Kevin Durant is back with the Warriors, you notice that Steph Curry is continuing to ball. Steph Curry is the leader of that team. There's no drama. There's no hype. They're really a great team. And that has a lot to do with the coaching of the Warriors. Now with Tyronn Lue and the Cavaliers, it's another situation where Tyronn Lue is the coach, but I would not say necessarily the leader of the team. And that's because you have LeBron James. But during the game, if you notice, Kyrie Irving gets the ball so much that you could say actually that he could be a leader of the team. Kyrie Irving also realizes with LeBron James there, the team's not looking at him as the real leader of the team, which is interesting. Because when there's pressure with the Cavaliers, does LeBron James want the ball? I would say more often than not, he does not. Does that mean that he's not a great baller? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that, but it also means when Dennis Rodman's talking about LeBron James, he's being accurate by saying, you know what? Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. And we're talking about the best of all time. You're talking about Michael Jordan. And we're not talking about LeBron James. Basically, that's what Dennis Rodman was saying. Because Dennis Rodman talking about Michael Jordan and people talking about LeBron James at the same time doesn't make sense to him. And I know it doesn't make sense to me. Because LeBron James could never compare to Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan had that ability of making his teammates better. And I think actually, you know what? In the Western Conference, I am not comparing Steph Curry to Jordan. But I think that Steph Curry, as a teammate, is a lot better than LeBron James. Because if you look at LeBron James and you say he has this great ability of passing the ball and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he has a great ability in the game. We get it. He can get guys the ball. Fantastic. But at some point in time, you have to talk about his leadership ability. And if he doesn't have it, and the team is not winning, that is not a recipe for a championship. This season, out of all the seasons that I've seen LeBron James try to be a teammate to the other guys on the team, being a teammate is more than just being in the game, obviously. And I think that LeBron James probably has a lot of pressure on him. He would want to win more championships. And he's not really going to Tyronn Lue for advice, if you notice that. And again, in the NBA playoffs, you need a coach. That's why the coach is there. And the coach is supposed to allow the players to be a team. Because then you just have a bunch of individuals on the team. And you're blaming other guys for issues during the game and all that kind of stuff. You know, some of that has happened with the Warriors. But we were talking about the beginning of the season. Now we're talking about the playoffs. And in sports, if you notice, the best teams, they're going to be playing their best basketball. Probably, I would say, in the middle of the season. And then you start getting to the playoffs, and they start really preparing for playoff basketball. And everyone out there that watches the NBA realizes that. Playoff basketball is playoff basketball. You might see some fouls that you weren't seeing during the regular season. Steph's going to get fouled. He's going to get shoved. I mean, we saw it last year with Draymond Green. LeBron James tripped him. Then the NBA suspends Draymond for punching him. And then they don't do anything about LeBron James. It's going to happen again in this playoffs. I'm not saying necessarily the same situation with LeBron James and Draymond Green. You even have Beverly on the Rockets. We all know how Beverly gets when he goes against the Warriors. This situation with the Blazers. There's going to be some tough picks going against Steph Curry. Even Klay Thompson and other guys. Although Klay can handle himself. Steph Curry, he can handle himself also. Also, you got to set the screens for him too. So as a Warriors fan, I remember when the Warriors won the championship, Steve Kerr had their team really running these screens for Steph so he can get his shots. And by the way, there was some message sending in this regular season while the Warriors were winning these games. Again, I'm not guaranteeing they're winning the NBA Finals. I don't guarantee anything with the Warriors. I root for them. I root for them actually because of Steve Kerr. You know that man has a lot of experience with winning championships. He's no joke. He's won 5 NBA championships as a player, and he's won 1 as a coach, and can possibly easily win more championships. Steve Kerr is a person, a leader, an NBA baller, a coach, a really awesome person. Because the way he leads this team is the way a coach should allow their players to be a team, but also allow them to know there needs to be structure there so they could win an NBA championship. And with other teams, when Kevin Durant was injured, if he just got back with the team, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win games. A lot of people out there were actually saying, hey, what's going to happen when Kevin Durant is back with the Warriors? Is he going to ruin the team? Are they going to be able to have the same attitude? Who's going to get the ball more? Who's going to be getting the most points? Who's going to get the most acknowledgement during the game? Who's going to be getting the interview? And people are going to say that they were the reason they won the game. It's not about that for the Warriors. They do not have that kind of attitude. When a team is balling and their goal is to win an NBA championship, if they win, they win. And if they lose, they're not going to be blaming their teammates. Which is an interesting conversation about LeBron James. You did not see Michael Jordan going to the media blaming his teammates. He just didn't do that. He wasn't about that. And for people to try to rewrite history about Michael Jordan and try to compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan is a joke. In one of my videos where I talk about Michael Jordan and the fact that people compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan, which is ridiculous to me again, I noticed recently that more people were watching the video. But that also has a lot to do with the sports media out there that talks about these things, and people are trying to figure out, like, what's this conversation all about? Especially people out there who did not watch Michael Jordan when he was in the NBA. And I am talking about when the games were actually going on. If you're talking about playoff basketball and the best in the NBA, and who is the best, you have to actually acknowledge what these guys are doing during the game. Even people trying to argue the fact that Russell Westbrook isn't the MVP of the regular season this season. As someone who roots for the Warriors, I'm saying he's the MVP of the regular season, and it's obvious. It was obvious before he got all those triple doubles. OKC doesn't have Kevin Durant. They're still balling. Russell Westbrook, whatever the media wants to say about him or whatever, he seems to be like a good person. Honestly. Watch Russell Westbrook throughout the game. More often than not, Russell Westbrook seems like a great teammate. Now, some people out there says he's getting the ball all the time or whatever. Who else on OKC would be that guy? You couldn't name anyone else because it's Russell Westbrook. So for you guys out there that criticize Westbrook for getting the ball all the time and saying that he's not the MVP, that's just not right. Now, at the same time, I'm saying that just because you get a bunch of triple doubles doesn't mean you're winning an NBA championship. Now, I think most people realize that. Even if you ask Russell Westbrook, you need to have a team built for a championship. And that's not Russell Westbrook's fault, because Kevin Durant did go from OKC to the Warriors for a lot of different reasons. And some of it could have been Russell Westbrook, but not all teams or teammates are going to win a championship, and most people know this. So if the idea that you had Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant on the same team didn't work, although they had an opportunity to get to the finals, obviously Kevin Durant saw that and was like, you know what? All these seasons with OKC, I would like to go to another team. Now, if you notice the way he talked about the situation, I thought he handled the situation fantastically, the way he talked about all this. And he's one of the best players in the NBA right now. You have to acknowledge the fact that he's balling, and he is. The Warriors are not the same team they were last season. They're not. They're a really different team. That's because some of the guys that were on the Warriors last season obviously are not on the team. You also have the addition of Kevin Durant. And you got Barnes too, but I'm talking about Kevin Durant. A lot of influence with his team because he gets a lot of points. And also he's good on defense too. If you're talking about the Warriors right now, and who has the advantage in this NBA playoffs? Again, I say anything can happen. But the reason why I think the Warriors have such a great advantage, because the Warriors are balling as a team. And they have guys that can actually win. They also have the experience not winning, obviously, last season. A lot of people are trashing them. And I'm not just talking about fans. Now, when you talk about the Cavaliers, even trying to argue this season that LeBron James should be the MVP. The MVP of the regular season, you can't be watching games. And you have to acknowledge when someone is getting that many triple doubles. Again, I root for the Warriors. Was Steph doing that throughout the whole season? No, he was not. But Steph is one of the best perimeter shooters of all time. Really. And that was not just a coincidence. People are saying, hey, you know, he had a great season, whatever. No, Steph is really good at shooting from the perimeter. Really good. And he can drive the net. When people start talking about whether he's arrogant or not or whatever, he has the character of someone who's a leader. That's who Steph Curry is. He's a leader. You don't have his teammates saying that he's arrogant. And you don't have his teammates asking questions about him at all. In fact, his teammates like him. And they want to win another championship. Or as I've said before, more championships. And that's because of Steve Kerr. And when you guys decided not to acknowledge the talent of Steve Kerr, and you didn't want to talk about the team. Meanwhile, Iguodala, while Kevin Durant was injured, was playing amazing basketball. Iguodala is one of my favorite bowlers on the Warriors. Why? Because he gets the game. He's smart about it. Really smart. Draymond Green's another smart bowler. Some people might say he argues a lot, whatever. He wants to win games, and he's a leader for that team. The Warriors are a team, and they realize what people have been saying about them. And now everyone else out there, you can say, hey, people trash the Cavaliers. People trash this team. No, actually, you know what I've been seeing recently is a lot of people have been trying to explain why LeBron James should be MVP. MVP of what? He can ball, but he's not the MVP. So the idea that you try to elevate your status to say that you're the best in the NBA, you could be compared to Michael Jordan, and that has nothing to do with reality of who is the best. Because the best in the NBA of all time is Michael Jordan. And I'm just talking facts about basketball. Fundamentally, you couldn't even compare the two guys. But that has a lot to do with Michael Jordan as an athlete. He was very unique in that way. Then you're talking about his ability as a leader and winning. He's perfect in the NBA Finals. You know, sometimes when people talk about sports, you guys don't acknowledge the fact that the reason why people are talking about sports or why they watch sports is because they're rooting for their teams, but they want to see the best athletes out there competing. And they don't want to hear excuses from people that are just talking nonsense because they don't want to talk about what's going on during the actual games. That's what I think. And I really also think that with Steph Curry as a leader of the Warriors, I think this season is a lot different than last season. I think there's less pressure because they had that regular season record. And I think the Warriors got into this routine where they were saying, you know what? We don't really care about the regular season record. But then again, you're going out there trying to get the record. Really approach this season much differently. Much different attitude. And I think that really helped their team. I also think there's less distractions with the Warriors. They realize what the media is about. They've won a championship. They get it. They know that there's going to be a lot of things being said about them and everything else. The more they win, by the way, the more things people are going to say about them. So I think in this NBA playoffs, the Warriors, the team I'm rooting for, has a great opportunity to win a championship. Again, I'm not guaranteeing anything with the team, but I am rooting for them. And I also think that the Warriors have some of the best fans in sports. And I'm talking about, interestingly enough, where I don't compare them to the Bulls in the way where they won as many championships because they only won one championship. But I can compare them to the Bulls in a way that they were popular enough where a lot of people just want to see the team play. And that's what the Warriors are about. They're a lot of fun to watch. Again, they have great fans. And that team has great leadership and also a great ability to just ball. That's what that team is about now. Everyone has their own responsibility. It's not just about one teammate or the other. It's about a team. That's really important. And that doesn't happen on all teams. Some guys might get annoyed. You see it with the Cavaliers. No offense to the Cavaliers, but we've been watching your team the whole season, and we've been seeing a lot of stuff from your team that's not a recipe for a championship. When they don't win a game, they're blaming each other. They go to the sports media. A lot of complaining. Now, again, it doesn't mean that they're going to win or not win or whatever, but we have to acknowledge what's going on with your team. And what's going on is that you guys are not playing like a team. And I think it's really interesting because when you want to say that you have the best player in the NBA on your team, is he the best leader? Does he get the most points? Does he want the ball at the important times in the game? Is he blaming his teammates when you don't win? I mean, what's going on with the team? I ask a lot of questions about the Cavaliers because if people are going to say they're the best, I want to know what's going on. Did you win the most games during the regular season? Are you acting like a championship team? How many teams have won a championship and then go on and just start blaming each other when you don't win games? Regular season games, by the way. Doesn't happen that often. Is your coach the leader of the team? Or is it one of the players on the team, which is LeBron James? But I also acknowledge the fact that LeBron James has won a lot and he can ball. So I'm not saying that LeBron James can't ball. I'm just saying who's the leader on the team. You don't have those questions with the Warriors. Steve Kerr is the leader of the Warriors. And I'm talking about as a coach. You also need leaders as players. Steph Curry, Thompson, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant. They're leaders. And you can also acknowledge the fact that Iguodala, he could lead that team too. They appreciate the game. And they want to win. And they want to win championships. That's what the Warriors are about. And I think this team has a great opportunity to win. Now, some people out there, you might say, hey, you saw that team win so many games. Of course, you're going to say that. You're rooting for the Warriors, the bandwagon fans, and this and that, whatever else. I've been rooting for Steve Kerr since he was in the NBA as an athlete. I was actually impressed by his perimeter shooting. When you're a fan of basketball, you notice those kind of things. We're talking about the best teams, the best athletes, who are the leaders in the NBA. And I don't guarantee anything with these teams, but the Warriors, that's the team I'm rooting for in the NBA Finals. Notice how I said the NBA Finals. Okay, the NBA Playoffs and the NBA Finals. Because this team is an interesting team, and they are about winning. And they want to be excellent. They don't want to be mediocre. That's not good enough for them. They want to have a great team. And that is something that is just really awesome about the Warriors. Now, I also have to find out if Carucci is a Warriors fan. Carucci, I think you're in California, so it's possible you could be a Lakers fan. A Clippers fan, that would be awful. Or even possibly a Warriors fan. It would be fantastic if you're a Warriors fan, by the way. But as far as the Warriors, you have to make sure that when Steph is open, he's getting the ball. And we're talking about, even though he's getting the ball, if he's running around those screens, a lot of times when Steph is running around so much, sometimes he is going to get that ball back into the paint. You know, they might send 2 or 3 guys to have to try to stop him. Steph has that ability also to recognize what's going on. So there's a lot of easy buckets. And when the Warriors are getting easy buckets, I'm talking about layups and dunks, this is what happens when this team is sharing the ball. That's when the Warriors are at their best. Now, even if you want to compare any other team to them, just look at the Cavaliers when they don't win games. LeBron shares the ball to the point where you know it's going to Kyrie. But the ball goes to him so much, teams are going to know where the ball is going. So again, as far as the NBA playoffs, I'm rooting for the Warriors. Shout out to Dub Nation. I would like to know what you guys think about all of this. Post your comments down below. Let me know who you think is the best team in the NBA, who you think is going to win the championship, or even who you think is the MVP. And of course, if you like this video, give a thumbs up. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.